so everybody's going to kind of gather around right now. So we spent class yesterday talking about fruits and vegetables and how they can benefit our body. And we talked about, you guys divided up into groups and you work with different colors. And so today we're working with a green vegetable, which is the zucchini. We kind of talked about the recipe yesterday. We are making baked zucchini chips. We looked over it, but I went ahead and put our recipe in our recipe holder. Okay, so it's right there. And all of your ingredients will be on the counter where they normally are, so that way your group members can go over there and get them. But for today's purpose, I'm going to kind of demonstrate a couple things that I want you to focus on for today's lab, and then I'll put the ingredients back over there. So to quickly go through what we need, we do need 2 medium zucchinis. All right, and I've already gone through and sliced them. Reason being, the best way for this recipe is if they're thinly sliced, so that way they crisp up well. We're not really that good with our knife skills yet. Normally like big chunks, they won't cook up as well. Alright, so definitely using a thin slice. So I've already gone ahead and cut them off for you, and each group will get a bag with their zucchinis already sliced in it. Okay, we will need a ½ cup of breadcrumbs, so it is Italian style breadcrumbs. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and measure out a ½ cup. Alright, remember, when you're measuring out your ingredients, you are bringing your measuring tools to the ingredients, not taking the ingredients to your station, because everybody in class needs them. If you are in charge of getting the pepper, you actually need 2 things to get the pepper. It is a 1/8 teaspoon, alright, which is a tiny measurement. But instead of you filling this and then trying to carry it back and falling all over, whoever brings the pepper needs to bring a little bowl. Okay? So for this, that way then you measure the pepper. You can then go ahead and put it right into the bowl. And then you just have to worry about carrying this back to your station, okay, and not juggling it or dropping it. Okay? That goes with the same person if you are getting the Parmesan cheese. Okay? A bowl, because you need 2 tablespoons. So either one of these would work. Alright? And you're going to get 2 tablespoons of these. So go ahead and put your measurement right inside. Alright, we measure out 1. You don't have to make 2 trips either, you just make 1. Okay? 2. Alright, same thing, then you can carry this back to your station. Alright, the next ingredient that you're going to need is 2 eggs. And when we talked about this, we talked about egg whites, which is just the clear looking part of the egg. When it cooks up, it looks white. That's why we call it egg whites. We don't need the yolk. So I'm going to kind of show you a couple ways to get to separate those. But first, the last ingredient was a ½ cup of water. Okay, you can tell I used a liquid measuring cup, alright, for my ½ cup. Now for the demonstration right now, I actually have 3 eggs here, because I'm going to show you 3 different ways in which you can separate the egg whites. Alright, and then when you go back to your group, if you have 1 person doing both eggs, they can choose. If you have 2 people each separating an egg, they can choose. Alright, but 3 different ways. Alright, the first way I like to separate the egg is I just like to use the shell as its own measuring tool. Alright, so when you crack the egg, you want to make sure that you're separating it upright, not cracking it like that so it falls in. Separating it, and some of the white will fall in when you open it. But now using the shell, you're going to juggle the egg back and forth, kind of letting the white fall into the bowl, using kind of the sharp edges of the egg to help guide it, alright, and then just catching the yolk in the shell. And when most of it's fallen in, you can just throw this out. Now when you're done with eggs, make sure you wash your hands, but since I'm going to demonstrate 2 more eggs, I will wash my hands when I'm done. The second way that you could crack an egg is you can just go ahead and crack it right into the bowl. Alright, and then using a large spoon, or the other end of our tablespoon, carefully scoop the yolk out of the bowl, making sure that you don't stab it though with the edge of the spoon, because if you do that, then the yolk will break and we'll get some yolk inside there. Okay, you might have to use your hands to kind of guide this through. Right, the point is to try to get the white in the bowl and the yolk in the spoon, and then we would throw the yolk out. Okay, so that's 2 ways. 2 ways. The last one's a little more messier, but some people like that. Okay, crack your egg, hold it upright like we did the first one, throw out the shell, and then dump it right into your hand, and kind of doing a little juggling motion with slightly opening your fingers. Okay, you're going to kind of let just the white fall through. Purpose of keeping the yolk in your hand, and then you can go ahead and throw that out. Alright, before we move on, let me just quickly wash my hands. Now, we had talked about that being a lower fat solution. In this case, we're just using the egg white as a binder. It's just going to stick our breadcrumbs. So, if for the purpose of today, when you're trying to crack the eggs, and you end up getting some yolk in there, okay, it won't be a big deal. Alright, we're just practicing a technique. We want you to try to get the least amount of yolk in there, right, but it's not going to harm the recipe. Alright, so I'm going to quickly then show you how I want you to set up your station so that it's nice and efficient in an assembly line, and then we'll let you guys go ahead and you can cook the zucchini chips. Alright, so the first step, preheat the oven to 475. I already had you do that so that way it was heating up and it's at that nice hot temperature once we get to our kitchens to cook. Alright, lightly spray a cookie sheet with cooking spray. I already have 2 demoed over here, but we've sprayed this with the cooking spray. Okay, just a nice thin layer. Alright, step 3, and of course remember, I'm just reading off step by step by step. You have your marker, cross off when you gather everything. Alright, in a small bowl, it says stir together the breadcrumbs, the pepper, and the cheese. You see how much easier it is when I have all of my ingredients already laid out? I can follow along. For this it says stir, we normally use a spoon. I'm going to suggest a whisk, mainly because one of the other classes, the pepper didn't get really distributed, and some of theirs were spicier than others, they were saying. So just whisk it up, make sure we combine those ingredients, okay, to breadcrumbs. Alright? Step 4 says place the egg whites in a separate bowl. Now remember, you only need 2, so that's what we're going to use. I had 3 to show you the 3 different ways. And with the egg whites, we're going to whisk in the water. Okay? Pour the water in. Just kind of whisk those together. Okay, you start to see some bubbles appear on the top. Alright? And at this moment, we're going to set up our assembly line. Okay? Most efficient way. So, closest to the oven, you're going to put your cookie sheet. Alright, the breadcrumbs next to that, the egg whites next to that, and then the zucchini. And I suggest each person do 2 at a time, because you have 2 hands, 1 in each hand. Okay? And you're just going to line up behind each other. The first person's going to grab 2 zucchini chips, and they're going to put them in the bowl with the egg white and water. Then they're going to push them into the breadcrumb mixture. Alright, and then they're going to put them on the cookie sheet. And they can go right next to each other, because unlike a cookie, when we bake it and it expands or gets bigger, okay, actually some of these are probably going to get smaller because the water is going to kind of get sucked out, so they can be touching. And once you put your 2 on the cookie sheet, you're going to get back behind the other people in your group, and everyone's going to go through until all the zucchinis have filled up this cooking sheet. Then everybody can wash their hands. Okay, we don't need to wash our hands between each step because you're going to come back through. Okay, just make sure you're not touching your face or licking your fingers or anything. Wash our hands, then we'll get them in the oven and we'll start cleaning up. Okay, so let me just quickly wash my hands. And then I will put the ingredients back onto the table and you guys can get going. So at this moment, why don't we go get our aprons and we can wash our hands and start to set up our sinks, and I will gather the rest of the ingredients for you. Okay, and we will get going.